Marcus Reed never expected to find her there, wedged between the waste processing units like discarded machinery. The maintenance tunnels beneath Nexus Prime were his domain, a maze of pipes and conduits that kept the colony breathing.
Most people
Never ventured this deep into the infrastructure, which suited Marcus perfectly. He preferred the company of pressure gauges and filtration systems to the complicated politics of colony life. The smell hit him first. Sharp and chemical, like rotting flowers mixed with industrial solvent. His nose wrinkled involuntarily as he rounded the corner with his diagnostic scanner. It's when he saw her, curled into a tight ball beside the thermal exhaust vent. Trembling despite the warmth radiating from the pipes, she was clearly not human. Her skin held a pale blue tint, and delicate silver markings traced along her visible arms like living tattoos. Her hair, matted and filthy, showed streaks of natural white that caught the dim maintenance lighting. Of what might once have been a work uniform, now stained beyond recognition, Marcus stopped dead in his tracks. In his 3 years on Nexus Prime, he'd learned that the colony's alien residents faced enough challenges without him adding to their burden. But this woman looked beyond desperate. She looked forgotten. Missy called softly, keeping his distance. "Are you hurt?" She didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge his presence. Her shoulders remained hunched, her face hidden against her knees. The smell grew stronger as he stepped closer, making his eyes water. He understood now why she was alone down here. The odor was overwhelming, biological but wrong somehow, as if her body chemistry had been fundamentally altered. Marcus had always been practical rather than sentimental. Fix what's broken, maintain what works, replace what can't be salvaged. But looking at this abandoned woman, something in his chest tightened. She wasn't broken machinery. She was a person who had been written off by everyone else. He retreated a few steps, pulled out his emergency supply kit, and extracted a nutrition bar and water pouch. Setting them on the ground within her reach, he spoke again, his voice gentle but clear. "I'm Marcus. I work down here maintaining the environmental systems. I don't know what happened to you, but no one should have to live like this." Still no response. But he noticed her breathing had changed slightly. She was listening. "There's food and water here. I have to finish my rounds, but I'll be back in an hour. If you're still here, maybe we can figure out how to help you." Marcus completed his inspection route mechanically, his mind occupied with the woman in the tunnels. The colony's medical bay would turn her away if they couldn't stand her presence. Long enough for treatment? Social services had a months-long waiting list for housing assistance. The reality was that she'd likely been surviving down here for weeks, maybe longer, because no one else could tolerate being near her. When he returned, both the food and water were gone, though she remained in the same position. This time, however, she looked up when she heard his footsteps. Her eyes were large and intelligent, a striking amber color that seemed to glow in the tunnel's dim lighting. Those eyes held no hope, just a weary assessment of whether he represented another threat. "My quarters aren't much," Marcus said, surprising himself with the offer. "But they have hot water and a real bed. You could clean up, rest somewhere safe." For a long moment, she simply stared at him. Then, slowly, she uncurled herself and stood. She was taller than he'd expected, nearly matching his own height, with a lean frame that suggested strength. Beneath the grime and exhaustion, she followed him through the maintenance corridors without speaking, keeping several paces behind. Marcus's small apartment was located in the technical staff housing block, sparse but clean. As they climbed the stairs to his floor, he caught glimpses of other residents quickly closing their doors. Driven away by the chemical stench that followed them, inside his quarters she stood motionless just inside the doorway, as if afraid to contaminate his space further. Marcus gestured toward the small bathroom. "Water's hot. Soap's in the shower. Take your time." She disappeared into the bathroom without a word, and soon he heard the sound of running water. While she cleaned herself, Marcus prepared a simple meal and tried to process what he'd just done. He'd brought home a complete stranger, someone whose very presence made him nauseous, someone who might be dangerous or unstable. But when she emerged from the bathroom 40 minutes later, wrapped in his spare towel with her wet hair plastered, to her skull Marcus realized his instincts had been correct. Beneath the filth and chemical stench had been a person worth saving. Her blue-tinted skin was smooth and unmarked except for those silver traceries, which he now realized were natural patterns rather than tattoos. Her face, no longer hidden by grime, was delicately featured and undeniably beautiful. She still carried the chemical odor, but it was greatly diminished. He handed her one of his clean shirts and a pair of loose pants, which she accepted with a small nod of thanks as she sat at his small table. Slowly eating the meal he'd prepared, Marcus studied her more carefully. Intelligence shone in her amber eyes, and her movements held a precision that spoke of education and training. This wasn't someone who belonged in the tunnels. This was someone who had fallen far from wherever she'd started. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She finished chewing before answering, her voice rough from disuse. "Kestra." It was a beginning. 3 days had passed since Kestra's arrival, and Marcus's small apartment had quietly transformed into a shared space. She moved through it with careful economy, touching nothing unnecessarily, occupying minimal room, as if she still expected to be asked to leave at any moment. The chemical smell had faded considerably with regular washing, though Marcus noticed Kestra checking herself obsessively, sniffing her own skin and clothing with barely concealed anxiety. She had yet to venture outside the apartment, spending her days organizing his modest possessions with meticulous care and preparing simple meals from his limited supplies. On the 4th morning, as Marcus prepared for his maintenance rounds, Kestra finally spoke more than a few words at a time. "I was a biochemist," she said, watching him pack his diagnostic equipment. Before this happened, Marcus paused in his preparations. "What did you specialize in?" "Atmospheric processing. I designed filtration systems for colonies like this one." She gestured toward the walls around them. "I helped build places where people could breathe clean air, drink pure water. I was good at it." The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Waited, sensing there was more she needed to say. "The accident happened at a research facility on Kepler Station. We were developing a new type of bioreactive compound for terraforming applications. The containment system failed during a routine test." Her voice remained steady, clinical. "3 of us were exposed. The others died within hours. Survived, but the chemicals bonded with my biochemistry, changed how my body processes and releases pheromones." Marcus set down his scanner. "Is it permanent?" Kestra's laugh held no humor. "No one knows. I was quarantined for medical observation, but the staff couldn't tolerate being near me long enough to conduct proper research. Eventually, they classified me as a non-critical case and transferred me to a long-term care facility." She paused. "Which couldn't house me because other patients became violently ill from my presence. So they just released you." With a small disability stipend and a recommendation to seek alternative living arrangements, her amber eyes met his. "That was 8 months ago. I've been moving from colony to colony, trying to find somewhere that would tolerate me long enough to let me work. Nexus Prime was supposed to be my last stop before I gave up entirely." Marcus absorbed this information. Quietly, the woman sitting in his kitchen wasn't just intelligent. She was highly educated, skilled, and had once been a contributing member of society. The industrial accident had stripped away everything except her knowledge and her dignity, and people's reactions had nearly taken those as well. "You said you designed filtration systems," he said thoughtfully. "I've been having trouble with the atmospheric processors in Sector 7. The readings are inconsistent, and I can't identify the source of the problem. Would you be willing to take a look at the data?" Something shifted in Kestra's expression, a spark of interest that had been absent since her arrival. "You would trust my judgment? You know more about atmospheric processing than anyone else?" "On this colony," Marcus replied. "Why wouldn't I trust your judgment?" He spent the morning teaching her his diagnostic protocols and showing her the colony's system schematics. Kestra absorbed the information with obvious hunger, asking pointed questions and making observations that revealed her deep understanding of the underlying principles. When he presented her with the problematic readings from Sector 7, she studied them with intense concentration. "Here," she said after 20 minutes, pointing to a specific data sequence. Your primary intake filters are functioning normally. But there's a resonance pattern suggesting a secondary contamination source. Something is introducing trace particulates that your current filtration array isn't designed to capture. Marcus looked at the readings again. He'd been focusing on the obvious mechanical components, but Kestra had identified a more subtle, systemic issue. What kind of particulates? Based on the molecular signatures, I'd guess organic compounds. It's probably fungal spores from somewhere in your intake system. You'll need to trace the airflow back to its source and look for biological growth in areas with high moisture and low air circulation. Her analysis proved correct. Marcus spent the afternoon following her guidance and discovered a significant mold colony growing in a forgotten maintenance junction. After cleaning and sterilizing the affected area, the atmospheric readings returned to normal parameters. That evening, as they shared dinner, Marcus noticed a change in Kestra's demeanor. She sat straighter, spoke more confidently, and for the first time since her arrival, she looked him directly in the eyes when they talked. It felt good to solve a problem again, she admitted, to be useful instead of just ... present. You've been useful, Marcus said. This place has never been so organized or well-maintained. That's just basic gratitude for shelter, she replied. Today was different. Today, I remembered what it felt like to be competent. They cleaned the dishes together, working in comfortable silence. As Kestra dried the last plate, she spoke without looking at him. The smell. Is it really better, or have you just gotten used to it? Marcus considered his answer carefully. It's much better. When you first arrived, it was overwhelming. Now I'd barely notice it unless I'm specifically paying attention. She nodded slowly. Sometimes I think I can smell it on myself and I panic. Other times I convince myself it's gone entirely. I don't trust my own perceptions anymore. What do you smell when you check? Clean skin? Soap? Sometimes a faint chemical undertone, but it might be my imagination. She set the plate in the cabinet with precise care. I used to love the way I smelled. My species produces natural pheromones that are supposed to be pleasant, calming.
Oh.
Now I'm afraid to get too close to anyone. Marcus moved to stand beside her at the counter. You don't smell bad, Kestra. You smell like someone who's been through trauma and is healing from it. There's nothing shameful about that. For the first time since her arrival, she allowed him to stand close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. The gesture was small but significant, a sign that she was beginning to trust not just his kindness, but his honesty. That night, she asked if she could help with his work the following day, not just analyzing data, but accompanying him on his maintenance rounds. Marcus agreed, recognizing that rebuilding her confidence required more than just solving puzzles in his kitchen. As she prepared for bed on the small couch he'd insisted she'd take while he used the floor, Kestra spoke one final time. Thank you for seeing me as more than just a problem to be managed. Marcus, settling onto his makeshift bed nearby, replied quietly, Thank you for letting me. 2 weeks had passed since Kestra began accompanying Marcus on his maintenance rounds, and their partnership had evolved into something neither had expected. She proved invaluable in diagnosing complex system failures, while her presence pushed Marcus to articulate his intuitive understanding of the colony's infrastructure in ways that deepened his own expertise. They had fallen into comfortable routines. Morning coffee prepared in companionable silence. Breakfast shared over diagnostic reports, their day's route planned together based on priority maintenance alerts. Evenings found them analyzing system performance data, Kestra's biochemical expertise, complementing Marcus's mechanical knowledge to solve problems that previously seemed intractable. The physical space of the apartment had adapted around them. Kestra had claimed the small desk by the window as her workspace, covering it with hand-drawn system diagrams and calculations. Marcus had moved his spare clothes to make room for hers in the closet, a gesture so natural that neither had commented on it, but beneath the professional collaboration and domestic harmony lay an undercurrent of growing awareness. Marcus found himself noticing the graceful way Kestra moved through his space, the intense concentration that furrowed her brow when she worked, the rare but brilliant smiles that transformed her entire face when they solved a particularly challenging problem. Kestra, for her part, had begun to relax her hypervigilant control over her own presence. She stood closer to Marcus when they worked, allowed their hands to brush when passing tools, and had stopped constantly checking herself for traces of the chemical odor that had defined her existence for so long. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday evening as they analyzed a persistent humidity problem in the residential sectors. They sat side by side at the small table, Kestra's diagram spread between them, their heads bent close over the calculations. Marcus was explaining the mechanical limitations of the current dehumidification system when he became aware that Kestra had gone very still beside him. "What is it?" he asked, looking up to find her watching him with an expression he couldn't interpret. "You're not holding your breath," she said quietly. Marcus realized she was right. Somewhere in the past few days, he had stopped unconsciously monitoring the air quality when they worked in close proximity. The faint chemical undertone that still occasionally clung to her had become simply part of her presence, no more noteworthy than the scent of her soap or the warmth of her body. "I stopped noticing," he admitted. "But you still notice other things." The question in her voice made his chest tighten. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering, she reached out slowly and touched his hand where it rested on the table. Her fingers were warm, slightly calloused from their maintenance work, and they trembled almost imperceptibly against his skin. "I mean that sometimes I catch you looking at me, and it's not the way someone looks at a problem they're trying to solve. It's the way someone looks at a person they're starting to care about." Marcus turned his hand over, palm up, allowing her fingers to settle into his. "Is that frightening?" "Terrifying," she said with a shaky laugh. "For months, the only human contact I've had has been negative. People pulling away, covering their faces, making excuses to leave. I'd convinced myself that I would never again be someone that another person wanted to be close to. And now I find myself wanting things I thought were lost forever, wanting to be touched without fear, to be close to someone without shame, to be desired instead of tolerated." Her amber eyes met his. "But wanting something and believing it's possible are different things." Marcus shifted his chair closer, their knees touching now. With his free hand, he reached up to brush a strand of silver-white hair from her face. Her breath caught at the contact, but she didn't pull away. "What would help you believe it's possible?" "But time," she said simply, "and patience. And someone who sees me as Kestra first, and as the woman with the chemical problem second. I can do that." They sat like that for a long moment, hands intertwined, the humidity calculations forgotten. Finally, Kestra spoke again. "I should warn you that I have no idea what I'm doing. Before the accident, I had relationships, but they were casual, easy. This feels important in a way that scares me." "We can go as slowly as you need," Marcus replied. "There's no timeline, no expectations, just us figuring things out together." That night, for the first time since her arrival, Kestra asked to share the bed instead of taking the couch. They lay facing each other in the darkness, talking quietly about their pasts, their fears, their hopes for whatever was developing between them. When she finally fell asleep, her hand still rested in his, and Marcus found himself marveling at the trust implicit in that simple contact. The next morning brought a new ease to their interactions. Kestra hummed while making breakfast, a soft melodic sound that filled the apartment with warmth.
"Ow."
Marcus caught himself smiling for no reason as he packed their equipment for the day's work. As they prepared to leave for the maintenance tunnels, Kestra paused at the door. "Marcus." "Yeah." "Thank you for waiting for me to be ready instead of trying to convince me I should be." He kissed her forehead gently, a gesture that felt both natural and momentous. "Thank you for trusting me enough to try." They walked to work hand in hand, and for the first time since the accident, Kestra held her head high as they passed other colonists. Some still wrinkled their noses or gave them a wide berth, but others simply nodded politely. A few even offered friendly greetings. The woman who had once hidden in the maintenance tunnels was disappearing, replaced by someone stronger, more confident, and ready to reclaim her place in the world. And Marcus, who had always preferred the company of machines to people, found himself grateful every day for the broken woman who had taught him that the most important repairs were the ones you made to each other's hearts. 3 months had transformed Kestra from a broken woman hiding in the tunnels to Marcus's equal partner in both work and life. The colony's environmental systems ran more efficiently than they had in years, thanks to their combined expertise. And Administrator Chen had officially recognized their team with commendations and increased resources. But the professional success paled beside the personal growth they had both experienced. Kestra no longer checked herself obsessively for traces of chemical odor, and Marcus had learned to express emotions he'd kept buried since childhood. Their relationship had deepened through countless small intimacies, shared jokes during long repair sessions, quiet conversations over breakfast. The comfortable silence that came from truly knowing another person. The physical aspect of their relationship had progressed slowly, respectfully, gentle touches while working, hands held during evening walks, soft kisses that spoke of growing trust and desire. But they had not yet become lovers in the fullest sense, both aware that crossing that threshold required Kestra to overcome not just her fear of rejection, but her deep-seated anxiety about her own body. The moment of breakthrough came on a warm evening as they worked to repair a climate control unit in the residential sector. The work required them to squeeze into a cramped maintenance alcove. Their bodies pressed close together as Marcus held the access panel open while Kestra recalibrated the internal sensors. As she reached across him to adjust a particularly stubborn component, her body stretched against his, and Marcus felt her breath catch. Instead of the usual quick withdrawal, however, she remained pressed against him, her amber eyes finding his in the dim light of the alcove. "I can feel your heartbeat," she whispered. "It's beating faster than usual. Because of me? Because of you?" She leaned closer, her lips barely brushing his ear. "I want you to touch me, Marcus, really touch me. But I need to know that if my scent changes, if the chemicals react to arousal or stress, you won't pull away." Marcus set down his tools and cupped her face in his hands. "Kestra, listen to me. Your scent has been part of who you are for months now. It's never once made me want to be anywhere but exactly where I am. Do you understand?"
She nodded, but
he could see the vulnerability in her eyes, the fear that had kept her isolated for so long. "Let me prove it to you," he said softly. They finished the repair quickly and returned to their apartment with barely contained urgency. Inside, Kestra stood by the window, silhouetted against the evening light, nervous energy radiating from her slender frame. Marcus approached slowly, giving her time to change her mind. When he reached her, he took her hands in his and simply held them, waiting for her to set the pace. "I used to be confident about this," she said quietly. "Before the accident, I knew how to touch and be touched, how to give and receive pleasure. Now I feel like I'm learning everything again, and we'll learn together." He kissed her then, deeper than their previous gentle explorations, and felt her respond with surprising intensity. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and when they broke apart, she was breathing hard. "I need to tell you something," she said. "My species, we release specific pheromones during intimate moments. They're supposed to enhance the experience for both partners. But I don't know if mine still work properly, or if they'll be too strong," or Marcus silenced her with another kiss. "Whatever happens, we'll handle it. Trust me, yes." He led her to the bed and began undressing, her slowly, reverently, pressing kisses to each inch of blue-tinted skin as it was revealed. The silver markings that traced her body were even more beautiful up close, like living art that shifted and glowed in the lamplight. When she was completely bare before him, he took a moment to simply look at her, his expression full of wonder and desire. "You're perfect," he whispered. As his hands explored her body, mapping the curves and angles of her, Kestra gradually relaxed into the sensation. Her earlier nervousness gave way to growing arousal, and with it came a subtle change. In the air around them, the chemical undertone that had always been part of her scent deepened and sweetened, becoming something that made Marcus's pulse quicken and his skin flush with heat. "Is that?" she began, but he was already answering with his body, pressing closer, his own arousal evident. "It's incredible," he murmured against her throat. "You're incredible." What followed was a slow, thorough exploration of each other's bodies, punctuated by whispered endearments and gasps of pleasure. Kestra's pheromones, far from being repulsive, heightened every sensation, making Marcus feel more alive and present than he ever had before. And as she responded to his touch with increasing abandon, our earlier fears seemed to melt away entirely. When they finally joined together, it was with a sense of completion that went far beyond the physical. They moved as one, their breathing synchronized, their bodies perfectly attuned to each other's needs. The chemical enhancement of her natural scent created an intoxicating feedback loop. Each sensation amplified and reflected back until they were lost in each other completely. Afterward, they lay entwined in the darkness, skin cooling in the gentle air circulation from the environmental systems they maintained together. Kestra traced lazy patterns on Marcus's chest, while he ran his fingers through her silver-white hair. "I was so afraid," she admitted quietly. "Afraid that I was broken in ways that couldn't be fixed, that no one would ever want me the way I am." "Now, you're not broken," Marcus replied firmly. "You're changed, but not broken. And the way you are now is exactly how I want you." She lifted her head to look at him, her amber eyes bright with unshed tears. "I love you," she said, the words carrying the weight of months of fear and healing. "I love you too," he replied, and meant it with every fiber of his being. They made love twice more that night, each time with growing confidence and passion. By morning, they had claimed each other completely, their bond sealed not just by physical intimacy but by the absolute trust and acceptance they had built together. As dawn light filtered through their window, Kestra stretched against him like a contented cat, her body loose and relaxed in a way Marcus had never seen before. "No regrets?" he asked, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Only that we waited so long," she replied with a smile that transformed her entire face. They had overcome the final barrier between them, and in doing so, had proven that love could indeed conquer the deepest fears and most profound changes. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as partners in every sense of the word. 6 months after that first night together, Marcus and Kestra had become one of Nexus Prime's most respected couples. Their professional partnership had revolutionized the colony's environmental systems, leading to a 30% increase in efficiency and a dramatic reduction in maintenance emergencies. More importantly, their personal relationship had challenged and changed attitudes throughout the colony about acceptance, resilience, and the power of unconditional love. Kestra's chemical condition had stabilized completely. Her pheromone production returning to normal ranges that enhanced rather than repelled. The medical team had finally been able to conduct proper studies, using their findings to develop treatments for similar exposure cases. What had once been her greatest source of shame had become a contribution to scientific knowledge that might help others. On a crisp morning in early spring, Marcus found Kestra in their shared workspace, poring over blueprints for a new atmospheric processing facility. She had been recruited by Colonial Engineering to design the next generation of filtration systems, a position that recognized her expertise and offered her the professional respect she had lost after her accident. "New project?" he asked, settling beside her with 2 cups of coffee, potentially. "They want me to consult on the Kepler station rebuild," she said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "The same facility where my accident happened." Marcus studied her face carefully. "How do you feel about that?" "Nervous, excited, ready." She leaned back in her chair. "It would mean travel, extended time away from Nexus Prime, away from you." "Not necessarily," Marcus replied with a smile that held secrets. Kestra raised an eyebrow. "What aren't you telling me?" Instead of answering immediately, Marcus pulled out a datapad and handed it to her. As she read the contents, her expression shifted from confusion to surprise to joy. "They offered you the position of Chief Environmental Engineer for the entire Kepler reconstruction project. Yesterday. Haven't given them an answer yet because I wanted to discuss it with you first." He took her hands in his. "We could do this together, Kestra. You designing the systems, me implementing and maintaining them. A real partnership." "You sure? Kepler Station is a 5-year commitment minimum. You'd be leaving your whole life here." Marcus looked around their apartment. taking in the space they had transformed from his sterile bachelor quarters into a warm, lived-in home. "My life isn't here anymore," he said simply. "It's wherever you are." Kestra set down the datapad and moved to sit in his lap, her arms winding around his neck. "I love you for saying that, but I need to know you're choosing this for the right reasons. Not just following me because you think I need protection. I'm choosing this because building something new with you sounds like the best possible way to spend the next 5 years," he replied. "Besides, someone needs to keep you from working 18-hour days and forgetting to eat." She laughed, the sound bright and free. "In that case, I accept both assignments." Their kiss was interrupted by the gentle chime of their apartment's communication system. Marcus reluctantly pulled away to answer it, finding Administrator Chen's face on the screen. "Marcus Kestra. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Not at all, Administrator," Kestra replied. "What can we do for you?" "Wanted to personally thank you both before the official ceremony next week. Your work here has been exemplary, but more than that, you've shown this entire colony what it means to see past surface differences to the person underneath." Chen paused. "I also wanted you to know that the Colonial Medical Board has approved the Kestra protocol for treating chemical exposure cases. Your experience is going to help a lot of people, Dr. Kestra." "Ah!" The title made Kestra's breath catch. "Ah!" She had been stripped of her professional credentials after the accident, told that her condition made her unsuitable for scientific work. Having them restored, along with recognition of her contributions, felt like the final piece of her identity clicking back into place. After Chen signed off, they sat in contemplative silence. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Dr. Kestra has a nice ring." "To it does," she agreed. "Though I have to admit, I've gotten quite fond of Kestra Reed." Marcus's heart stopped. They had never discussed marriage. They'd been so focused on healing and building their partnership that formal commitments had seemed unnecessary. But hearing his surname attached to hers felt absolutely right. "Is that a proposal?" he asked carefully. "A possibility," she replied with a mischievous smile. "Assuming you're interested in making this arrangement permanent, Kestra," he said, standing and pulling her up with him. "I've been interested in making this permanent since the day I found you in those tunnels. You brought purpose to my life, challenged me to be better than I thought I could be, and taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone worth growing with." "Is that a yes?" "It's an absolutely yes." Their second kiss was deeper, more intense, full of promise and joy, and the absolute certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as partners in every sense of the word. Later that evening, as they packed their belongings in preparation for their new adventure, Kestra paused in her folding to watch Marcus carefully wrapping his diagnostic equipment. "Dude, you ever think about how different things would be if you had just walked past me that day?" she asked. Marcus considered the question seriously. "Sometimes, but I think we would have found each other eventually somehow. Some people are just meant to be together." "You really believe that?" "I believe that the universe has a way of putting the right people in each other's paths when they need it most," he replied. "I needed someone to remind me what it meant to care about another person. You needed someone who could see past your pain to the amazing woman underneath. We saved each other." Kestra crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him from behind, her cheek pressed against his shoulder. "I used to think that accident ruined my life," she said quietly. "But if it hadn't happened, I never would have ended up in those tunnels. I never would have met you, never would have learned how strong I could be, or how beautiful love can be when it's built on acceptance rather than perfection. No regrets? None at all." As they finished packing, preparing for their new life, together on Kepler Station, both Marcus and Kestra felt the deep satisfaction that comes from finding one's place in the universe. They had transformed from two isolated individuals into a partnership that was stronger than the sum of its parts. The woman who had once hidden in the maintenance tunnels was now Dr. Kestra Reed, respected scientist and beloved partner. The man, who had preferred machines to people, had learned that the most important connections were the ones you made with other hearts. Together, they would build new worlds, design better systems, and continue proving that love, patience, and acceptance could overcome any obstacle. Their story was just beginning,